our languages have, in many different countries, our languages have been outlawed historically. And in some areas, we are in a crisis in the preservation of our language. And North America is an example of that, over 500 years of colonization there. So when we come to a convening like this that wants to recognize the viewpoint of indigenous peoples from our cultural perspective, and we have to say that our culture is derived from our language. The specific interpretation of our relationship to plant, to fish, to the environment is derived specifically within how we define that within our language. And if we have this World Water Forum in the future, let's say that the 12th World Water Forum, there will not be any elders here from some of our indigenous communities that have that knowledge to sit here and have to share our specific cultural values, our philosophy, our cosmovision, our spirituality, because they would have passed on, but taking that knowledge with them. Language is very important, but again, when we talk about culture as indigenous peoples concerning water, there is political ramifications here and implications, because in some governments, our language had been outlawed. My understanding is that in this country, indigenous people, there is indigenous people whose language was outlawed until recently. So this is why it's very critical around this question. And yes, as indigenous people, and in our community in North America, there has been an imposition of colonial values so that many of our people become acculturated, or they become assimilated to the values of the dominant society. So what does that mean here? Does that mean we have a world that has been born of an industrialization, industrial mindset? And industrialization is a process that, from my observation and my research, that has removed communities of many different tribes, all people, from the center of understanding of the importance of the sacredness of Mother Earth. So industrialization then has moved so that we, away from this foundation of community, away from nature, the concept of nature, so that we depend upon technology to save us. We depend upon these other instruments, allow the economic system to save us. For an example, the issue of climate change. We're depending our survival on a carbon trading and emissions trading regime that is not working in Europe. But now we're starting to trade water. So these are concepts to us is the corruption of the sacred. So maybe I'm saying things that stirs the emotions, because this goes into, when we talk about cultural values, we're talking about often religious and spiritual values that I think other sessions that we'll go out into, but we have our own spiritual cosmovision that's very important, that has maintained us up to this point to understand our relationship and living with Mother Earth in a balanced and harmonious way. Thank you.
Çok teşekkür ediyorum. Sayın Tom konuşurken aslında o kültürleri sunarken özellikle o kültürel bilgi birikimini konuşmasında da çok güzel yansıtıyor ve ifade ediyor. Her zaman çok bitmesini istemediğimiz biçimde güzel konuşuyor. Fakat zamanımız birde bitirmek zorundayım. Onun için son bir söz isteği önceden istenip buyurun son söz olarak size, sonra ben toparlayarak kapatacağım. Buyurun.
Just one little thing to squeeze in that's not really been mentioned. I won't go into detail. I did actually put a paper in about.
Lütfen, çünkü bir de bitirmek zorundayım.
I'm sorry.
Buyurun.
No, but there was, and it was accepted, and then very soon before the conference it was told there was no room for it. But that doesn't matter. But what matters is that in the session number 6, I feel that the whole subject of unwritten know-how, it may be reflected in indigenous is also reflected in the history of one of the oldest water husbandries in the world, the South Arabian husbandry, which then spread from 4,500 BC. It evolved in Yemen and Oman. And then within 100 years of Islam, 70%, 60% of the Muslim armies were farmers and fighters from this part of the world. And this know-how was taken right around the Mediterranean. And it was in Spain and right over in the Far East. And in the session on cultural heritage, there was a very beautiful but very emphatic emphasis on Turkey. And I understand we are in Turkey, so it's important. As a result, this other great root of traditional know-how, which was long before Islam but is now underpinned by Islam and is still extant, I have watched this unwritten know-how disappearing in my eyes in the last 35 years simply because the children of the farmers do not learn the songs and the unwritten poems and the techniques and the craft from their fathers, because now they are in the school. And it's like language. If it is spoken, it disappears in one generation. And we have to acknowledge these precious systems as well.